Do it.
How's it going, fans? Welcome back to a third edition of the Eeez N Beez Brunch. I'm your host, Eddie B, and with me, like always, he's the man that holds it down in A-Town. It's Bryan. How's it going, B?
Going good, man. Going good. Just eating a little brunch as we speak, actually. So
nice, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's glad to have you back. I can't wait to dive into this. Once again, if you are just watching at home, Bryan and I are jumping back into 1996 in the time machine, and we're going to check out the wars. We're 3 weeks in. What we do is we basically go through each episode of the Raw and Nitro, talk about what happened, each match, break some things down, talk about some silly stuff that we see, maybe some stuff we didn't see. Also, we give it a rating at the end of each episode where we give it a bacon rating, Bryan. And as you know, currently right now, we are 3 weeks, or we're going into week 3. And setting as we are right now, Bryan, Raw holds 4 pieces of bacon, Nitro is holding 10. And that's just in a couple episodes. So, you know, they're already up on the old Raw crew, 6 pieces of bacon. So we'll see how this episode turns out this week, man. Are you ready to jump into this?
Ready to jump into it. Ready to go.
All right. Well, everybody at home, we've agreed here. We're going to start out with Nitro first. Obviously, this is Monday, January 15th. Correct, Bryan?
That is correct. January 15th. Takes place in Miami, Florida. Got your classic announcers, Eric, Mongo.
Yep.
His little dog.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell what Pepe was wearing. I was watching it on an iPad.
Okay. Yes, he's always decked out. He's decked out every time. I didn't check it out either.
Somebody takes Pepe away once the show starts, I've noticed too. So sometimes he's there, sometimes.
I'm surprised that he can actually stay as still as he does with how loud I'm sure it was, right? Let's talk about how loud it was, Bryan. The crowd, what'd you think of it? Just by the pan out view, to me, you know, in Miami, Florida, I'm not too sure how many that seated, but it seemed like to me it was a full house.
Yeah, it looked like a really nice crowd. It had a nice like overshot of Miami as like they panned into the show. So yeah, they made it look like it was a pretty big time show.
Yeah,
and I think reflected that as well. It was a nice crowd.
I thought so too. Yeah, they were hot from the get-go, in my opinion. As we know, though, I mean, you've discussed this more than once. Who knows how many of those fans are actually paying? Back in this time, you know, WCW was well known for fronting them tickets, bro. Getting that crowd looking bigger than it really is, or making that gate seem a lot bigger than what it looked like.
And the way they shoot it too, they can really make it look a lot bigger or block off where there aren't fans sitting.
Yeah, definitely. How they were the first ones. Well, not the first, I shouldn't say, but they were one of the ones that caught my eye when they started doing different shots with the hard cam versus the plain old steady one spot area. They kind of gave you a little bit better of a view, in my opinion. I think WWE kind of jumped on boat, and everybody else obviously afterwards of doing the panoramic kind of, you know, even though you might have some dead spots, they knew how to make that look good, in my opinion.
Yeah, you got to have somebody in the truck telling them where to shoot and where not to shoot. You know what I mean? So
yeah, definitely.
And I think we'll touch on that a little bit when we get into the Raw episode. But yeah, I think, not to go too far ahead, I think Raw is starting to take from Nitro. I think for me, I really saw it this first week a little more mimicking of how Nitro did things.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree. And we'll jump into that. But hey, let's jump right into this Nitro, man. Bryan, you know me. What's my thing? What do I say? You start the show how?
Need to start it hot, and they definitely did. Luger versus Macho. The stipulation too was the winner gets a shot at the world title. So huge stakes for
right out
TV,
the gate.
For an on TV, a regular TV show. I noticed there were lots of Hogan shirts, the Hulkster shirts. Definitely front row, so maybe those were some of the tickets they gave away.
Possibly, yeah. I now that you say that, I was listening to the 83 Weeks not too long ago, and Bischoff was talking about how DDP would come down, and there would be people in NWO shirts, and then he would point to them, and they would take them off, and then have DDP shirts on. And he wouldn't say whether or not that was a setup plan thing or so I always wondered that. But yeah, for sure, I agree. This was a thick crowd of Hogan. But I'll talk about that in a little bit later, because I thought this was a little bit more of a diverse somebody else crowd, in my opinion. But hey, this match, Brian, did you notice this when it started? And it caught my attention right away. The bell rang with Luger outside. He wasn't even in the ring.
Yeah. I noticed. I have a note that Luger kind of did a dirty start. I didn't notice that they rang it before he got into the ring, but that's
and I can't remember who said it, and it might have been Heenan. I'm not sure, but somebody did mention it, not very bluntly, as that started. But I mean, let's be honest. We all know the rules are the bell can't ring until both people are in the actual ring, right?
But I'm sure it had something to do with setting up that dirty start that he had. It had to
maybe. But let me ask you this too: you think it was time? You think they were like, dude, come on, we've got to get this going?
Calling too much, yeah, because he did spend a lot of time acting like he didn't want any of Savage, so that was probably some of it. And like you said, they have an hour show after a commercial, like 42-minute show, so it's like, yeah, we want to get everything in. Let's get this going. So
agree. So yeah, you're right. It got crazy. Then a chair got thrown in. Dude, it was just like chaos from the get-go. Brian, what did you see on your end? What do you think how this thing should have maybe started?
I noticed a lot of backpedaling by Luger, for sure. He seemed to not want to engage. They kept on the fact that Luger was 3-0 versus Savage. We're still doing is Luger a heel or a face?
That's what I got. Yes, I have in my notes. Who's the heel here? I mean, that's the only bad part of this start is you've got two fan favorites, but yet they're going in two different directions, kind of, if you know what I mean. But yeah. Who's the heel here? So yeah, go ahead. My fault.
So they don't really know. I noticed Savage has the bandage on the arm, which he, I believe, in that time period had. Yep. Does a really good job selling that. One side note I noticed is the beginning of the show, they announced Hogan was going to wrestle a member of the Dungeon of Doom. And then during that match, they announced it was Ming. And I kind of wondered why didn't they tell you at the opening of the show that it was Ming? Like, what? I mean, maybe to keep you surprised, I guess. But
yeah, I think that was more of the pull in.
Yeah, maybe. That's most of the notes. There wasn't a lot of wrestling in this match. It was a lot of.
I actually have in my notes. A lot of this was outside, which I'm not a huge fan of. I like it inside, but I said they made it work. Now, the question I wanted to ask you, Brian, it's the only one I have for this match on the question for you, but who do you think was calling this match? Because I couldn't read it. I couldn't tell if Macho was calling this match or if Luger was calling it, because
I would assume I couldn't really tell either. I wasn't really looking for it. I would assume Macho would.
That's what I was thinking, but who knows?
Would logically think that he would. What really surprised about me with this match was the ending of the match, and that was Luger beating Savage in the rack clean,
straight, and it didn't take long.
It didn't really make any sense.
After he missed a huge elbow drop, which, okay, we get that. But
and I misspoke earlier. The winner of this match didn't win the world title. Savage was going to get a shot at the world title winner later in this episode. So why would you have the guy that's essentially the number one contender get beat in the first match of Nitro clean? Like that just.
Well, here's what I say. I kind of like that though in a way, because now it kind of goes a little south later in the story, but I like the situation where you're putting two good stars. Like we said, my problem was we didn't know who the heel is, but you got two of the biggest stars out there starting to show off, and we know this. Macho Man's already getting this title shot. Well, now if you have Luger beat him, then you got everybody saying, wait, he don't deserve it. Luger deserves it. And that's kind of what they went for, I think, in a way. but it didn't work in the end because they still give Macho the shot. Well, we'll talk about later on.
But kills some of his steam, I think.
To me, it still throws, and maybe this is what they're going after. I could be completely wrong, but maybe they still want us to be confused about Luger, and I was.
That's what it is. Overall, I had the same kind of thoughts you did. It was two big names that opened the match, which I thought was really good, grabbed your attention. As far as quality of the match, it was below par. Definitely for a Savage match, usually he brings it pretty good. Whether that was him working with Luger, the style of match they had, I would assume contributed to it, but not much wrestling. It was a lot of kind of back and forth, backpedaling.
Not much action, but like I said, the outside stuff, they made it work. The injuries they sold worked.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say, one take, we'll move on to the next one, Brian, is this is what I'm big on. They got that crowd going. They really got the crowd going from the start. It was, like I said, not much action, but it was enough to get them leading into what we had coming up next. And I thought that's key when you have a show. If you don't get that crowd going at the beginning, then
agreed.
You might not ever get them. So, all right. After that, Brian, we had the Dungeon Doom. They come out and they grab Gene Okerlund by the neck, and then what caught me by surprise was the Four Horsemen comes out with them. Do you remember that?
Yeah. It was supposed to be Morrison Taskmaster versus Arn and Pillman. Then basically the Dungeon and the Horsemen, they all come out to have a big happy interview.
Yeah, and they come to an agreement. But what I want to make a note on, and I hope you watched it because I loved every bit of it, and I got something that I want to talk about here in a second. Arn calls out Brian Pillman, and dude punks him out, slap, dude. That was the best slap I've seen yet this year in this '96 era. That's the number one slap right there. But what I want to talk about is just how each one of those two played off each other, dude. That was great. Because now
I thought Brian Pillman was way ahead of his time. I mean, I know he passed later that year, and man, like going into the attitude, the more realistic type of wrestling, I think he would have been huge, honestly, because he really did look like he was off his rocker.
Well, I got one of his last. I got a surprise for you before we go any further. Got it a couple weeks back. I've been waiting to show you. I got one of his last figures that was made before he passed in the mail from one of our friends at Toy Vomit, and it's, I don't know if you can kind of see it there. It's a Stomp WWF.
Pull it back a little bit. Pull it back. Yeah, there I can see it better. Still a glare.
Yeah, I don't know where I can get that glare from, but there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
So it's a Stomp WWF 1997 Jax figure. This is obviously when he made the transition over before he passed. This is 97, so this is not too long after what we're talking about here. But why I bring this to your attention was because he didn't have another WCW figure made. This was like one of his last figures made, and it's still this Warzone era, in WWF, I think, is a continuance of the figure or the character that he was portraying that we're talking about right here, right now. And that's, the psycho crazy Brian Pillman, and it worked.
I didn't see a lot of his WWF stuff, which obviously
it wasn't very good, in my opinion. I don't know, maybe because I was such a WCW homer at the time, but you could see there was something wrong. Once he got that big body wise, Brian, it was just something wasn't right. Same way I felt with the Bulldog. It's just like once he got so big, it was like something ain't right with him.
I love this character. I wish it would have played out more. Obviously, he's not there very long in the Horsemen, but I love the unhinged character that he played. I did notice he had lots of earrings in his ears.
Yeah.
The style of '96.
That was, dude. That was. I mean, who didn't have their ear pierced twice besides me and you? Right. Anyhow, so this little skit ends ends pretty bland, but like I still love the action that they brought. It didn't answer very many questions. It brought more questions, in my opinion. Like, why is the Dungeon and Doom and the Four Horsemen coming to an agreement? I mean, this is pre NWO era, so like it just doesn't make sense.
They're both kind of feuding with like the Hogan and Savage. They do say they're going to loan the Giant out to the Horsemen for the Clash. So that's kind of a big thing. What are your overall impressions of the Dungeon of Doom? I mean, definitely very hokey for their time.
Let's be honest, Brian. Some of them are washed up. The only person that I can take serious out of there is the Giant, honestly. But I will say this: Kevin Sullivan, dude, in his time was a badass. Yeah. Back when he ran the Varsity Club, and
I don't dislike his character. I think it's funny because he definitely has a thick Boston accent. So
yeah,
whenever he talks, it doesn't to me fit that character. I'll tell you the one I really like is Hugh Morris.
I like Hugh Morris as well. Yes.
Super underrated, athletic, huge. Did that? What was it? No Laughing Matter off the top rope. Very athletic.
Yeah. Now he goes on in the future in further life, and he's a coach, and he's a great dude actually. So,
but that was definitely a non-match.
Yeah, weird situation there. Kind of like a hey, we're supposed to get a match, but instead we get 10 people from the back in the ring. One slaps one. That's about all. Anyhow, let's move on. After that, Brian, we moved into a double debut situation where the Public Enemy took on the American Males, and I'm going to stop there, and I want to hear it from
you. Public Enemy, definitely early hardcore. I'm not a historian, but I feel like at this time,
Johnny Grunge, Rocco Rock.
That was Rocco Rock. They were trying to capitalize on the Naughty by Nature.
Yeah.
Has Naughty by Nature on his back of his shirt. American Males, their gimmick I feel like was totally 80s, very stale at the time. I think both guys were really talented. Obviously, Bagwell becomes huge.
Scotty Riggs. They're both become pretty famous. More Bagwell than Riggs.
Yeah, I thought Riggs, if they would have done something with him, I didn't think his wrestling was that great. I've heard Bischoff talk about his charisma wasn't there, but you can do things to kind of help that out. I feel like he was kind of a wasted talent, but I do feel like he was really, really good at the ring. Definitely. I did notice there was an elderly lady in the crowd that really went wild for the American Males. She was really digging that.
Yeah, I wrote here in my notes, even Bobby the Brain kind of mentioned in the commentary, he was pumping up Public Enemy, and I thought that was kind of cool. Even though they were the heel in this match versus the American Males, and we know he's the heel commentator, but it's just like Bischoff's bringing in this new talent, or not Bischoff, but WCW is bringing in this new talent, and to kind of push him right off the bat from Bobby, that's kind of cool in my opinion. So I thought that was a great way to get a start. I mean, your debut, you got Bobby the Brain Heenan kind of pumping you up, and let's be honest, Brian, this match wasn't bad.
No, one of the notes I have is that it really looked like a tag match. It looked like both teams. It didn't look like they put two singles together. They really worked it like a tag match. There was lots of back and forth with both members. It didn't look too synchronized, but it had the flow of a tag match, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I noticed that the time probably was a situation for them. Like they probably the skit before them probably gone into their time. I guarantee it, because you got to think about it. You got Flair, Arn Anderson, you got all them people out there that are trying to get their seconds on the mic. So that probably cut into this match, but because what happened at the end, Brian, caught me by surprise, but yet they still went ahead with it. So it seemed like how long they took to do what they did at the end, they could have cut some of that shit away and put some more moves in the match and made it a little bit better, in my opinion. But what do you think?
Well, I have the anticlimactic finish at what really wasn't that. I can't read my writing. Bagwell hit somebody. What do you have the ending as?
Spotty.
think Bagwell hit somebody from behind. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, yeah.
The American males.
Yeah, he hits it from behind, and then it's a roll up 1, 2, 3 on him.
Roll up. That's
Yeah,
exactly
because there was a crossbody before by the American males that was pretty good. But it was a crap ending. Yeah, like you said, it was a crap ending. So I felt like they should have put more time in the way they finished this match versus what happened next, which was.
But I really liked what happened next because I have more notes on that than I do actually the finish.
Go for it then.
Public Enemy stacks 2 tables on top.
Double decker, baby.
Double decker. Bagwell helps them put him on the table. And I mean,
he scoops into the middle, bro. If you pay attention, like he almost finger walks himself over to get like, all right, and then he's like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it goes through both the tables.
Yeah. Dude,
like
humongous bump. Humongous, Brian. Not just huge, humongous. I noted this also, not to cut you off, but Bischoff even says at the end of this, we needed to go to the back and check on Bagwell. And I'm not too sure if he was meaning that for real or if he was, skit to say that. It made me feel like he was being serious because, dude, after watching that in slow-mo, dude took a little bit of a rough bump on the second table going down.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was Rocco Rock or I get him confused. I think it was the one.
Rocco.
The Reds, right? That did it.
Yeah, Rocco was the one that jumped. Yeah, he's the wild.
Yeah, he looks hurt as well.
Yeah.
I do know that,
yeah.
If I was, and even now, but definitely a younger kid seeing this, it would have blown my mind. Just great bump. For this.
Amazing.
Today
for this time, it still works here in 2021, Brian. That's still something popular. We know the Dudleys are huge or famous for get the tables.
Yeah.
But let me tell you this. This is what I got in my notes right directly after that. I said to myself, man, if Brian was sitting next to me or if I was to call Brian, I would tell him, dude, turn to this and don't change it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that would definitely have appealed to me.
Because we didn't have cell phones in this time. So obviously it wouldn't be as easy to be like, oh, dude, are you watching the same thing I am in text message? So I was thinking to myself, like in 96, I think I would be like, I hope I can, use my phone because if somebody's on it, they can't use it. Or, I hope nobody's on the phone at Brian. So when I call, he'll answer. And honestly, that's what I wrote. I mean, think about that, dude. If I would have saw that in 96, I would have never changed the channel again.
Now, let me ask you this. You may not know the answer off the top of your head. I know that they were from Philadelphia, and I don't know a lot about ECW. Were they ever involved in to me, Public Enemy seems like they're straight out of ECW, that style of wrestling. Is that, are you aware of anything like that? I'm not
I think they had a small stint. I'm gonna give you the factual right now, just so we're not lying to our fans here, but
well, this is all off the hip anyways. I mean,
right. Yes, I thought they were, but I can't tell you what year. Hold on. So honestly, what we're talking 96. This is their debut in 96 in WCW. They debuted in 93. So they're 3 years active already, before they get here. So yeah, they started in ECW. So that's why, that makes total sense. I totally spaced that because let's think about this, Brian. Me and you didn't watch that much ECW back then, right? When we were in this era, we were on our way out anyways, but the ECW was not even an afterthought. It wasn't even a thought. So that makes sense of why I'm not too familiar, but I thought, I know they were there. I just couldn't remember when they started. So they've been 3 years prior. So obviously they're bringing the grunge with them. That makes sense. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. And that makes 100%.
Yeah. So after that, Brian, we jumped into, man, it seemed like, okay, how can you top that? Well, it got better. It was the WCW heavyweight title on the line, dude. And
my first thought is why is the world title not the main event? Question mark.
100% with you. This is a bad booking situation. And once again, I think this whole episode falls on time, Brian. I really do. I think they were off on their time marks, and I think like you said, honestly, originally I think they were gonna maybe do Hogan and Giant at the end, and then it switched to Ming. Maybe, I don't know for sure, but that just seems like that would be a better main event than what we got. But it wasn't bad. Anyhow, what we had here, Brian, was Ric Flair, obviously the champion, and he was taking on Sting. And this time, though, Ric Flair came to the ring with Jimmy Hart, which I noted was odd.
Yeah.
Not
It has to do with that dungeon.
Yeah.
But I have a note on that too.
It leads back to, yes, exactly what we saw earlier, where, the Dungeon of Doom was teamed up with the Four Horsemen to an agreement. But I even put my notes here. I'm not a fan of Jimmy Hart with Ric Flair, just because I know who Jimmy Hart is. It's no, they're the same thing. Ric Flair never needed a mouthpiece and never would.
Yeah. They're both on 10 all the time. You can't have two manager.
Exactly. Yeah,
he doesn't need a mouthpiece.
Before we start this match, Brian, I'm going to ask you: did you notice during this match that annoying whistle in the crowd? And it wasn't his megaphone. It wasn't his I thought at first he was hitting like a button on his megaphone, and then I noticed it later on. He was talking through the megaphone, and the whistle was going on, and it was an actual blow whistle.
A long time ago, I went to Indy. I watched the Dream Team 2 play an exhibition match, and I forget what country they were against, but the fans of the other country brought whistles, which I think is common in soccer. Don't quote me on that. They kept blowing the whistles, and they kept saying over the PA, please stop blowing the whistles, because
it's messing with the game. Yeah,
it's messing with the game. So I don't know. Maybe, I'm sure that was different. That was just, something they were.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you if you noticed that, but I just thought it was odd. You know why else it made me think of, now that we're talking ECW? That's famous in ECW. The whistle with Rob Van Dam and his manager. His manager always had the whistle and was always blowing the whistle. It's just
maybe it came over. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's the only time at a sporting event I've ever encountered that. To be honest, I don't think the players could have heard it, from the distance anyways, but I do remember them saying over the PA to please stop blowing the whistles. So, yeah. But no, I didn't really notice it, but now that you mention it, it kind of rings a bell to me. What about this? I have a question for you. So you mentioned something, I believe, last week, or maybe the week before, about Ric Flair's attire.
Yeah, I got my notes on it. Yep, that's great. You said that.
We wear green tights and yellow boots, which doesn't fit the red and blue.
Gotcha. You know why? How's this match end?
Well, let's see.
DQ.
Is it a DQ? I know. Sorry, my notes are so long here. Yeah, it is kind of a DQ. Yeah, it's the botch finish with the microphone.
It's interference. So that's I have that in my notes. I was gonna bring it up. I was like, I wanted to mention Bryan again. So I noticed in my notes right away: green trunks, green robe. This match is not gonna be a finish. It's gonna be either a DQ or a botch. Lo and behold, we'll get to that in a minute. But also, I noted, Bryan, Sting's hair is getting a little bit longer, still dark. He's not redying it. So this is obviously he's going towards the Crow look. This is when it started.
Yeah, he's a lot less blonde. He looks in really good shape. He's super athletic.
I mean, he's still tan. Face paint.
I did notice Flair calling spots in the match.
Yep. I got that on my right hand side here. Flair calls match. So, I mean,
Flair
honestly, that's given. Anytime Flair's in the ring, 99.9% of the time, he's going to be calling the match. It doesn't matter who he's wrestling.
Classic spots, the over the rope,
yep,
the everything on there. I did notice his chest chops are freaking brutal, dude.
Note this, circle this, whatever you got to do. Next time these two wrestle, I want to see if Flair's chops are just as strong, because I feel like he turns it up on certain people, and Sting's one of them.
On that one, but I noticed when he punches, his punches aren't very good.
They don't connect. They don't even hit.
Well,
I
Yeah,
have
they
that
don't
written
get-
down here. His punches were
They're
awful
legit.
in this match. Terrible.
Yeah, agreed.
Now that's for us, the armchair, judge here. Now at home or there in person, you're not going to see that because it's way too far
Sure.
away, and it would be perfect.
Not even the punches landing, more just the way the punches looked when he threw them. I don't think were great punches, but the chest chops are phenomenal. I did notice in the middle of the match, Sting did an odd crotch gyration. Do you remember that? Where he kind of does like the ravishing Rick Rude.
Yeah. I don't know if he was confused or if that was just his Ric Flair.
I mean, he was obviously mocking Flair, but
and you know what else I noted too? We've talked about, or you noted this a couple weeks back, and I paid more attention. Did you know the knot on the back of Flair's back looked bigger this week than normal?
I was the one that brought it up initially. I noticed it like I always notice it.
But did you think it was bigger this week, or maybe I'm just now that I'm paying more attention to it?
You probably just paid more attention to it.
Gotcha. Anyhow, Brian. So other than a couple, the bad punches and a couple of mismatches, this wasn't bad. We've seen the classic great clothesline from Sting. Sting did the old rocket missile throw Flair off the top turnbuckle. We didn't get, though, one thing I was kind of looking more for was Flair working on the leg, and I figured he would do a lot more of that with Sting because his older matches he does. That's his gimmick. We know that, but
that could add something to do with the finish. Obviously, we alluded to the finish. Jimmy Hart has the microphone. Luger comes out supposedly to take the microphone.
So, wait, before we go any further, let's talk about this real quick. We know this. Luger and Sting are butting heads because Luger cost him a couple weeks back, right? So now we got Luger coming out from the back again. This time, this is why I didn't like Jimmy Hart there. It made no sense. Why is he there? If you didn't have Jimmy Hart there, this would have worked a lot better. But anyhow, Luger comes out. We got double distraction on the apron. Nick Patrick is the best ref in WCW at this time. So obviously he's doing his job of trying not to see what all is going on. And Sting is up and he's about to get, obviously, the win or whatever, or go for the win. And go ahead, Brian. Luger jumps in, right?
Yeah, Luger jumps in, tries to take the microphone from Jimmy Hart. It's slightly botched.
It's very botched.
it looks very forced. Hits Sting once again, costing the world title. So we're still building up the doubt if Luger's the heel. Luger ends up attacking Flair. Hogan, Savage come out. They clear the ring.
Now, check this out. Before we go any further, when Hogan and Macho come out to clear the ring, did you notice the confusion on Ric Flair? I think really. I don't know if not this or if all these guys worked this out completely before this happened. But to me, it seemed like more confusion. Obviously, when Luger and Jimmy with the megaphone, I think that was a botch. And then I think at the end here, when Hogan and Macho come in, like, man, Hogan and Macho could have destroyed Ric Flair. And they all looked right at him. And then Flair had that chance to get away because they obviously went to the other corner. And it just, and then Luger, and then, him and Luger butt up in the corner as they're backpedaling away. Yeah. It definitely sells the story that we're talking. There's something in the water with Luger and Sting. And what I like better is the partnership of Hogan and Macho right now. That's what I like.
Yeah, they're trying to bring the mega powers back. I think you kind of answered your own question. Why was Jimmy Hart there? I think he was out there almost strictly to push the dungeon and horseman narrative that they're working together, but then also I think it was strictly for the ending of that match.
Yeah, you're probably right there, but I still feel like they could have done it a better way without it. Just
they could have made the microphone spot work a lot better. That was just the timing was off on it.
To me though, you're putting a hat on another hat on another hat when you're doing all this, because what I didn't like was after this, Brian, they had a terrible promo in the, that promo they did with Sting, it was awful. The crowd was silent. I mean, to me, that should have been the end of the show, because you lost the crowd after this. And that's what I want to talk about next, is the main event, Brian, which was Hogan versus me. We've talked about it already kind of a little bit, but honestly, Brian, not to go jumping farther and further ahead, but the crowd popped more for Flair in the match prior than they did for Hogan in the main event. What do you think?
Well, I have no idea why Hogan and Ming would be the main event match. It makes little sense to me. I know Hogan's the biggest name, and this was
now. Let's not discredit Ming. Let's not discredit Ming, because Haku is an amazing stiff talent, and we know this. He's feared by many, and he's really good. You know, his family's still wrestling to this day. Obviously, his sons wrestle in New Japan, the Gorillas of Destruction. It's just, to me, you're right. It didn't make sense for this to be the main event. This would be an okay, if these two matches were flipped, this show would have been a 5-piece of bacon almost, in my opinion. But the problem is, you've got Hogan, who just came in to break up a fight prior. Now he's going to the back, and he's going to come right back out.
Yeah, why would he leave and come back out? I don't think this is a very good booked match. I don't think Ming and Hogan are great together.
Yeah, okay, let me tell you this. So I know Ming's style, and he's like this, the Road Warriors. You know, he lays it in. He does his job and goes home. He's a no BS kind of guy. And to me, that's kind of where I felt like this should have been a great match, because Hogan usually calls the match. Hogan likes to be in control, and Ming's the type of guy that would probably play along. And it just, I don't know if there was no desire for Ming to be excited about this match or whatnot, but it just seemed like neither guy meshed well in this event. And yeah, it was a crappy way to end the show. And like I said, the crowd wasn't in.
It was probably the worst of the matches, to be honest with you. The only reason it was the main event was because Hogan was in it. And I think if you want to have good matches with Hogan, you have to put him in there with a good worker. And not that Ming's not a good worker, but like you said, the styles, just two big guys that just punch and kick. I think you have to have someone with more athleticism to blend with the Hogan style or the Ming style, and it just was not a very good match.
And then the way it ended, Brian, let me tell you, that come on, who's writing this crap? I mean, I understand they're trying to get over maybe Ming being not supposed to beat Hogan, so he's got to use an object to win, but dude, that was botched as well. Hogan, I think, saved it and made it what it was. Reuse the spike on Ming to get the win. The ref doesn't see it. It works out. Obviously, 1, 2, 3, we go home. But it's just, man, come on.
I noticed Hogan had an awful where he raises the leg and gives him the big boot, like barely got his leg.
Get it up.
It was awful.
You know why? Because he was probably wore out from running to the ring to save freaking Sting.
I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but he actually wrestled a semi-decent match, and this one just didn't work for me. Just lots of chokes, punches, not any wrestling. The ending was okay, I guess. I mean, he takes the spike after the Sullivan interference. Savage helps. Then he puts the spike in Ming's pants. I noticed.
Yeah, that was wild.
But yeah.
Other than a crappy ending, it wasn't a bad show. That's how the end of week Nitro wraps up. There at home, folks, if you're watching along with us. Brian, like I said, this was a good show from the beginning when I was excited, but it kind of fizzled out at the end on me. I still love what was all involved, but I'm not gonna rate it as high as you probably think I am. But before I give you my pieces of bacon, let's hear how many pieces of bacon you gave it.
Well, let me give you a couple final thoughts. I did some final thoughts. I thought the order of the matches were really bizarre. Like I said, to have the world title match and then the Hogan Ming match. I think he could have done the Hogan Ming first, even though
Yes, and then that makes that running at the end work. And Brian, sorry not to cut you off, but think about this: that running in at the end works, and you end the show with Macho, Hogan, and Sting in the ring talking about how crooked Luger is. Why didn't they do that, man? That's why I feel like this was messed up.
But some other notes, they did have all the stars on the show. So I mean, you had every big name in the they had meaningful matches. You had a world title match. The best spot of the night was the Public Enemy table spot, I thought. I thought the best match was Sting and Flair overall.
Absolutely.
They only had 4 real matches. There really wasn't a lot of great wrestling, but there
wasn't a lot of skits either. Now let's not forget about that. That's something we didn't touch on. There wasn't a lot of bullshit either.
That's true. You didn't have like the Malenkos, the Eddie Guerreros, anybody like that to put on a really good wrestling match.
But you could have squeezed them in there, in my opinion. You could have put one of those matches in there where you had that Dungeon of Doom and 4 Horsemen. That could have been done. That could have been done in the back on camera, and that's one of your, skits for the day.
I thought that promo was way too long, just like the Savage Hogan one.
You know what else I noted, Brian, is how Eric Bischoff I noted him saying that all the stars love WCW, and he went through a whole bunch of famous names, and I wrote down one because it brought attention to and it was Shaq, and this is 1996. He's talking about how Shaq loves WCW. Let's fast forward to where we're at right here, right now. Shaq's going to wrestle March 3rd, AEW on Dynamite, TNT. How crazy is that?
He gives Ditka a lot of props. He talks about
Mongo, obviously. Anyhow, so final thoughts, and we'll move right into the Raw here in just a minute. So,
one quick thing. I don't know if you caught this, and I wondered if you knew the backstory. I tried to look it up and I couldn't find anything, but the promo with Savage and Hogan, Savage makes a comment on Nick Bockwinkel about how he's a real champion or deserves a real shot, something like that. You'd have to go back and watch it. Unlike Nick Bockwinkel. And I kind of wondered why he said that. I know he wrestled him, before he got major promotions, but I wonder why Savage took a shot at Nick Bockwinkel on Nitro in 1996.
Maybe that went over my head. I don't recall seeing that. I know it was probably on there, but I know maybe gosh, I don't know.
Do me a favor and watch the interview.
I'll go back. Yeah, that'll be my homework for this episode.
Find out about it for me, because I couldn't really find anything.
All right, Brian. Well, with that being said, I gotta have it. How many pieces of bacon are you giving this Nitro here on January 15th, 1996?
To me, this wasn't my favorite Nitro. Like I said, it didn't have a lot of good wrestling. I thought, I gave you my thoughts. I gave it about 1.5 strips. I said, the Hogan was underwhelming. I liked the Flair match, American Males match. Public Enemy was good, but it was kind of short. Only had one,
sure.
And I really disappointed by the Luger Macho match. I thought they could have had a way better match.
And that's where I can agree on you. Obviously, I rated mine a little bit heavier pieces than you, but I have the same exact thoughts. The Macho Luger botch, the Hogan match wasn't in the right place. Just so many things out of place. Now, if they would have put a few things in the right place, maybe brought in another match or something, this could have, like I said, been a solid 5 pieces of bacon because of who they've got on here, Brian. They've got every big name and some. But unfortunately for me, I'm only going to be able to slide in 2.5 pieces of bacon on this one because it was not in place. It had what we wanted, just not in the right order, and we had a few misses. That's my opinion.
Yeah, they had the right players. It just wasn't executed well, in my opinion.
Exactly. And with that, Brian, that's going to wrap up week 3 of Nitro. If you give us just a minute here, we'll get right back with you. We're going to jump into week 3, Monday Night Raw. All right, Brian, we're going to keep it rolling here. Week 3, January 15th, 1996. Well, let's turn it over. It's WWF, whatever you want to call it, time. That's right. Monday Night Raw. I noticed this, Brian, right off the bat. They gave a shout out to Martin Luther King, which I didn't recall Nitro doing. I thought that was kind of weird that Nitro didn't do it. After I seen it on Raw, I was like, wait a minute, I didn't remember seeing Nitro do it. Anyhow, commentator team obviously was the same old Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler, which in 96 is the common for this year. And I think it's probably the best they had anyways. This was the go home show for what was going to happen the following Sunday, Royal Rumble 1996. That's what I got for a start. Brian, how about you? What do you got, man?
One thing I have a note about the MLK tribute, the fact that Nitro did not do any sort of tribute or any mention, I thought was slightly odd as well. A lot of Royal Rumble hype. I thought they did a better job this time kind of laying out what we were going to see on the show as opposed to other shows.
They laid it all out, didn't they?
Once again, no location.
No.
So we don't know where this took place. I'm sure you can look it up. They also teased another Billionaire Ted skit, which they seem to be.
They're on it hard. This is 3 weeks in a row now that we're talking. They're physically starting their show out, bringing up the fact that they got a silly skit that they're going to make fun of the other brand, which I know in my notes, it's starting to get old. I mean, okay, let's be honest. The first time probably was funny, but now you're putting it in your opener, and we'll talk probably about it. I mean, he brings it up through the whole show, obviously, because I save it to the end. But the other thing that I didn't like the start part is this Goldberg Razor Ramon storyline they're pushing. I'm just not a fan of it.
Gold Dust.
Or what I say?
Goldberg.
Gold Dust. Yes, my fault. Gold Dust. Excuse me. Gold Dust. Razor Ramon storyline, and I'm not a fan of it.
Constant updates from Doc Hendricks, Michael Hayes. Razor Ramon is on his way. He is on his way. Okay, let us know when he gets there.
Listen, he was on his way for the whole hour.
Whole hour he was on his way. So let us know when he gets there, man.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. That's all we needed. One time. He's coming, and then all right, Doc, we'll see you when he's here. But anyhow, let's talk about how this thing started, Brian. You know, as we talk about it every week, every show, I'm huge on how you start your show. Well, they started with Marty Jannetty taking on the current King of the Ring, Owen Hart, with Jimmy Cornette to his side. What'd you think, man?
The first note I have is they came out and the crowd looked completely dead. They looked like they could not care. No pop whatsoever for either of them.
When I heard Marty Jannetty's music, I was like, all right. And then it just seemed like Marty Jannetty's music got louder and there was no cheering. And I was just like, wow. I think even
hard, I was kind of surprised that you would have thought.
Yeah, we know this is obviously taped. So one thing I want to say, this might not have been the opening match for that crowd, but it was the opening match for Raw, which they explain that to you when you're at these live events. They'll tell you, hey, we're doing a taping, so we're gonna get you to raise the volume when we start this episode, and yada yada yada. Well, yeah, this might not have been the opening starting match for that crowd, but either way, they should have been on their game, and they, like you said, it was flat, like back. Yeah.
I did notice Marty Jannetty had some wild attire on. It was like Ultimate Warrior colors. He kind of had an odd outfit.
I noted that too. His outfit was ridiculous.
He actually looked pretty bigger than I remember.
He was bigger than he was. He's okay. So this is when he got obviously has split from Michaels and all that. He's trying to make a singles run, and he's actually gained weight. I mean, honestly, I liked him at this size. I think he fit in better, in my opinion, as a single. Because I don't know, you think of Marty Jannetty, you're never gonna think of him not being with Shawn Michaels, but you know they were trying to make something happen. It never really does work into anything. But I want to say this, Brian, these two work great together. Owen Hart can work with anybody, in my opinion. He's one of the best out there. Obviously, his dad trained him. You know, his brother's one of the greatest. But just how they flowed in this match was pretty smooth, I thought. That's what I noted. I mean, that was my opinion.
I noticed that an athletic, really athletic match. It wasn't too long, medium to shortish. to kind of go back to what you're saying, Shawn Michaels, Vince McMahon hyped Shawn Michaels a lot and talked about Shawn Michaels a lot during this match, which I know they're hyping the Royal Rumble, but
and his return, and he seemed like he didn't have any focus. I even noted this at the beginning of the match. He like the crowd panned to a redheaded woman, and he was like, "Whoa!" like making fun of a person in this crowd, like he was more into anything but this match, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah. Not too bad of a match.
I liked the match. I really did. It was, like I said, they worked good together, but the commentary,
like it really didn't get the crowd going. It wouldn't have been
it's a bad crowd match. I literally have that at the last 3 words of my notes: bad crowd match, and it really was. Obviously, Owen Hart gets the win. Cornette didn't have to get involved, but it's always good seeing him no matter what at ringside. You always got to keep your eye on him. He's usually up to something. After that, Brian, what we have?
In between, they do like a little Royal Rumble hype.
Yep.
They hype for a match on the pay-per-view free channel where 2 competitors will go against each other. The winner will be the last person in the Rumble. The loser will be
first, which was the first time they'd ever done this. So this is kind of like nowadays, Brian, you get this everywhere. UFC does it. I mean, everybody does it. They do a pre-show, they do prelims, and you usually get those free before the big main event, pay-per-view, whatever, what you have not. And this was 1996, and this is actually Vince McMahon kind of putting his foot in that game, if you ask me, because they're this is pre-network era. This is pre-blow up internet era. I mean, we do have the internet, but obviously it's not big right yet. It just
not a bad idea.
He knew what he was doing, bro. You know what I mean? He was ahead of
through. You see a match, and then you're like, "Yeah, this isn't bad." And then they kind of hype you up for the pay-per-view, and you say, "You know what? I'll fork out $50-$60." And
exactly. I mean, they do it everywhere. Like the UFC, they pull you in, they put a couple big names on that little lower card just to sell it because they know they're gonna get you roped in eventually. But yeah. Great way to get things kind of moving after a so bad crowd match, as we say, but yet I think a good talent-wise match in the ring. After that, Brian, we had another match coming up, and it was the new $1 million champion, the ringmaster, Steve Austin, and he took on a debuting Matt Hardy. How crazy is this?
Yeah, that was pretty crazy to see Matt Hardy like that with the short hair, kind of basic tights.
Like baby blue kind of tights, maybe tealish. I can't remember which color they were. And then just literally a M and an H on his butt, for Matt Hardy. And that was just all it was.
Because I have that it had an H and a V on it, and I was
like, why was it? Okay, well then High Voltage, because that ends up being the tag team that him and his brother are when they're debuting at the same time. But this was kind of, it caught my eye because I forgot about this, and to see that obviously we know what Stone Cold, or well, about this time Ringmaster Steve Austin, we know what he goes on to be, but now to talk about what Matt Hardy goes on to be is just as good, not as good, but as good. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it becomes
amazing, I should say. Yeah.
A couple other notes I have is they don't show Matt Hardy's intro. He's already
in. Yeah, I do say this is his first TV time, so kind of cool for him. I think he's only like 17 or 18 years old, Brian. He's not very old at all right there.
Yeah, he looks super young. They have a promo too of Sonny, and it's very scandalous kind of promo.
Let me tell you,
that kind of gets me to a point that I guess I was going to make at the end, where they're kind of blending the hokey, cartoony stuff with even, I would say, over the top, like adult.
Raw. Yes.
Yeah, she makes I wasn't going to say it, but she makes a comment about how she likes it raw or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, these are hot segments. Let's not fool ourselves. At this time, now this goes to goes back to what we talked about just a little bit ago, Brian, on the Nitro show. Let me ask you this. You're flipping through and you see the double-decker table splash that we were talked about. You're not changing it because it's that's awesome, right? But then again, you have this where you're flipping through and a half nude, smoking hot girl to some people, I guess, at that time, is on a wrestling channel promoting wrestling. That's gonna pull the other crowd in. So, like, you know, you got
more adult.
yeah. This is how they're playing fire or shooting back, in my opinion.
That is showing that they're kind of gearing more towards the change when they're letting some stuff like that slip in. But yeah, so you answered my question about the HV on the tights because I could not figure that out. I was like, what?
Other thing I got noted, this was a great squash match. I had two things. I don't know if you noticed this. I swear on his right arm, Austin had a rollerblade elbow pad or what?
Yeah, I did notice he had an elbow.
You know
pad.
what I'm talking about? It was like the big knotted plastic piece. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then
the other observation I had is Matt Hardy was a lot bigger than I thought he was. If you look at him next to Austin, they're about the same size.
He's not a small guy. His brother's the same way. I have this noted for Hardy. The last thing I've got, his kicks are still the same in 2021. He kicks the exact same way. It's crazy.
What I had noted is Austin throws really good punches, and they're the Stone Cold Steve Austin punches, but his punches look like he's doing damage. Yeah.
This right here, this match to me was like the start of it. Because, man, just watching his work, he was so more believable. And with Ted DiBiase, you know, as the manager, that not only puts you that much, you know, more up there. So anyhow, a good squash match, you know, in my opinion. Another one of those crowd dull moments in my, you know, really wasn't much to cheer for. Obviously, the crowd don't know enough about Matt Hardy and Stone Cold or Steve Austin, whatever you want to call him. He's the heel at the time, and everybody hates Ted DiBiase. So it was another, you know, not a bad placement for this match, but when your crowd's not popping right now, you're not going to get much out of this one either. It's just going to be get your work in and get out.
It was a good match. You know, obviously, if people would have known how these two turned out, it would have got a much bigger pop, but they were both really good wrestlers. I noticed Austin attacked him after he won, you know, just trying to push the heel angle, I guess. Not a bad match. I have it rated kind of as good as about anything I saw on the WCW.
Yeah, way believable. It goes to show you, Brian, the reason why Matt Hardy's still wrestling at 2021. And honestly, if Stone Cold didn't have injuries, we all know he'd still be wrestling if he could at this time because they were that good. They were believable, that good. Let's keep it moving here. After that, Brian, well, we went into the Shawn Michaels promo. We've been talking about it. Obviously, Vince McMahon's been stuffing it down our throats. We all know he's coming back, right? Well, this promo, Brian, I got a couple notes, a couple things I want to ask you.
Same here.
When they go through the video clips for them and they're showing what happened and he's talking about what happened to him and he collapses in the ring, what's your thoughts on that, dude? Do you think that's real?
I don't think that was real. I know that there was some rumors that maybe some substance issues caused that. I think that was a totally spot. But
we're not far from him. Remember, he got jumped.
He talks about it.
Yeah, there's a true story of that for him running his mouth or whatnot. But
he talks about Syracuse, New York incident. He has a black eye, gave him a concussion. He talks about being jumped, don't quote me, I think he says by 9 thugs.
8 or 9 thugs, yeah. I mean, obviously, he's beefing the story up. He's got to, because, you know, right now, in everybody else's eyes, Brian, he's their hero, you know?
Yeah.
Our hero can't get beat up. He's you know, he's Superman. Anyhow, my thoughts, Brian, this is a great vignette to throw in there with the storyline. I think, obviously, we're talking about it right now, but still to this day, like, I could say some of it's believable. or true, and some of it's not, but they did an excellent job putting it together, making it work. We all know there's a lot of stuff going on outside of wrestling at this time with Shawn Michaels, and it only continues. But yet, let's talk about the very ending of this this promo. I have it in huge letters, dude, and I know you saw it. His hair and his makeup was ridiculous. Did you see the ending of this?
Looks like he had a bowl cut from the one. I did notice they showed him come into the ring with Jenny McCarthy. I think that was WrestleMania. They allude to him possibly having brain damage. And then back to the Syracuse, I know there's a lot of stories about that. You know, some people say it was one guy, it wasn't 9 guys. There's a story about him being with Davey Boy Smith, and he was in this small car and he couldn't get out of the back seat to help him because he was so big he was stuck in the back seat. And then when he finally got out, he's the one that kind of saved the day.
I mean, I honestly, it's one of those, Brian. I think it's use your own imagination, or well, it doesn't need to be imagination, but
they did a good job of explaining away, like you said, you can't. You know, if you're trying to still portray it as a real thing, you can't say.
Well, let's be honest that, you know, people are going to ask why he's like that if they didn't bring this storyline into play. And
you could tell he'd been beat up. I mean,
yeah, it was like there was no way to hide it. So only way you could hide this was not have him on TV. And let's face it, he just made the huge split, and all this crazy stuff has been going on in his, you know, he's on his climb up, and you can't just not have him included. So I think, like you said, and I said, it was just a great way to include it in a storyline. They left out a lot of detail, and they threw in a lot of phony detail, but in reality, we all could go back and look the true history up and know that. But if we're talking wrestling, this was great, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then after that, we have Razor's coming, Doc Hendricks. Even before the last match, I believe we had.
I'm not gonna go over every time we go to Doc Hendricks, because otherwise it'd be every segment.
Between every single match, we get a Doc Hendricks. Razor's coming to address Goldust in his interview or whatever.
Yeah.
So you may go on to the next one.
So after that, what do we have coming up after that, Brian?
We have match 3, the Smoking Guns versus the Spiders. Who?
I knew. Okay, this is why I do a little research.
They come back in the middle of the match. There's no lead up. Just a total awful floor match. It lasted maybe a minute, so there's nothing really to discuss.
But there's a lot to talk about for me, because 2 things. This show has started off great, in my opinion, right? I mean, compared to the last 2 weeks, where we know both times in the last 2 weeks, we've had taped matches thrown in. We've had matches from the past, you know, they've used to fill an hour. Now, once again, here we go. We're right back to, we come into a match that's damn near over. And we're, like you said, we got 2 opponents we've never heard of or seen before in our life, but yet they expect us to go right along with it and, you know, act like it's cool that these guys have been here and nothing's changed. Yeah, it was quick, like you said, bam. I still think the Smoking Guns.
You hear me, man? Your audio is not coming through on my end.
Oh, you can't hear? Can you hear me now?
I missed that whole last part.
Oh, well, I
summarized this like the last.
Just basically saying that you know, they do this to fill time, and honestly,
yeah,
I love the Smoking Guns. I think they need more time on the TV. They're really good talents, and they we're holding the belts at this time. But to answer your question, Brian, who the Spiders were, well, it's somebody we're going to be very familiar with here in the future. It's the Headbangers.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's the Headbangers.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
they made this spot. I didn't have enough time to look up the truth why they actually were doing this, but this gimmick did not last. It only lasted for this stint here. I think basically this was a tryout for the Headbangers, and they did so well that Vince McMahon had them put that match on this airing. And after this, I'm not sure who asked, but they changed gimmicks, and we know them to be the headbangers in the future. And we'll talk about that when they come into our storyline.
It might have been a decent match if we would have saw the majority of it. I do have a note that Billy Gunn, when the Smoking Guns won, came off the top rope and they did like I think it's called like the Harlem Hangover, the same kind of move that the Harlem Heat does as their team finisher. So that was a nice move, but the match
Dude,
was.
Here's one thing that goes overlooked, Brian. Billy Gunn and Bart Gunn are big cats, dude. They're 6'7", they're big dudes. And I hate how they get shot to be like mediocre, not very, impressive when they really are on the visual. So
yeah, agreed.
All right. After that, Brian, of course, like we said, that was a very quick match, which I wish we would have seen the whole thing, but they jumped straight into what?
Get another great Billionaire Ted skit, the Wrestling War Room. Vince Russo calls the Nitro wrestlers disloyal, greedy, I think lazy has-beens from the 80s. Lots of shots at Hogan and Macho. Ted comes up with the idea of let's call Hogan the boy toy. I thought that was kind of funny. But same thing we've seen the last couple weeks. We get it. You think they're old.
Once again,
I get them driving up to this, but at a certain time, if you're acknowledging your competition this much, you really are showing how threatened you are by them. Yeah. Whereas I've said in the past, Bischoff will make little snide, quick comments about him, but then he's
not going this far. He's not wasting money on.
He's not dedicating
on
multiple. Yeah, right.
He's not forking over $1 million. I mean, think about this. This is 3 weeks in a row, and they've not only pushed it from the opening to end, the skits I'm talking. They've also had to pay these people to do this, and it's just ridiculous. I know it's probably in-house talent. Maybe it might not be as much as I'm thinking, but still, it's a waste of time that they could be throwing that whole Smoking Guns versus the Spiders match on there or something.
Could have had the whole match if you would have cut that out. And you're not saying anything new. You're saying the same thing every single week.
And then what they have, what we have next, Brian, is just as bad. You know what I mean? Like, this is something else that they could have absolutely done without. And what it is, it's Gold Dust coming to the ring with Vince to talk to Vince about this silly situation with Razor. What's your thoughts on this, dude?
This one's kind of a complicated thing to talk about. There's a lot of, how do I say this? Talk about like Vince being homophobic, or sorry, Razor Ramon being homophobic. I didn't think the interview was bad. I think some of the comments by the announcers would be considered.
Can't do it nowadays. Let's face it.
Correct. Yeah. I will give them credit, for pushing the envelope and being progressive with their characters, no doubt. I thought for 2021, this was kind of an awkward interview because
exactly. I agree with you 100%. The times that we are in are obviously way different, but let's be honest. I don't think this belongs back then, back now, back anytime, because it's just not a cool storyline in my opinion. I mean, who does it appeal to? To my opinion, that's a small crowd, right? The storyline's not gonna. Obviously, the kids are gonna be confused. That's off the bat. And on top of that, you've got a character in Gold Dust, which is, he's painted, he's flamboyant, as we say, or whatnot. So that attracts to the kids in a way. But then when it comes time for the kids to find out what the hell's going on, and they're asking their parents, how's the parents going to explain this? That's why I don't like, because it's a lose-lose situation, in my opinion. Yeah, I just think I like the two wrestlers battling each other. I just don't like the storyline.
Yeah, and some of it has to do with the time period, but to make the character what he is, that's fine, but then you're kind of slightly making fun of it at the same time.
Yeah,
That's
to me, I
distasteful.
feel like there was more of an
I thought it
inside.
was a really awkward interview because I don't think in maybe it was the time period. I don't think they really knew how to handle a character like that well in 1996.
Now let
But
me
yeah,
say this too, though. I think Dustin was showing his creativity. Yes, I understand that.
oh
But
yeah,
man,
I always liked the Gold Dust character. I really did. I just thought, like you said, the storyline they put it in made it really awkward. Some of the announcers' comments were kind of cheap shots. It just this of all the stuff I've seen, this made me uncomfortable in the fact that just it's not politically correct for today's standards, and just I
agree.
think you
Let's move on. We agree. I
really,
move on. I
really
totally.
cringy for back then. Even
Yeah, absolutely. It's just too. It's just not right. Anyway, after that, Brian, we moved into what I thought was the match of the night, and it was Sir Isaac Yankem, aka Kane, versus the Undertaker. The Undertaker had the mask on at this time because I think, if I remember right, he had an orbital broken surgery or something like that. So he had to wear the mask in order to wrestle. He was at ringside with Paul Bear. Noted here in my notes, Brian, the urn was not at ringside. It was a chain representing the urn. Did you have that in your notes as well?
I did have that. I don't know the story behind that. I have a note that Yankem came out to virtually no pop. He had horrible teeth. I don't know if that was
Fake.
his teeth or they were fake.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're fake. If you pay attention, I hate to say this, but if you pay attention when he goes around the ringside and talks to Jerry Lawler there at commentary, he talks to Lawler. As soon as he gets done talking to Lawler, you see he puts him back in, and then he gets in the ring. Noted in my notes, Jerry Lawler is pulling for Sir Isaac Yankem very hardcore in this match. But did you know watching this at this time, this was Kane beforehand?
Yeah, I knew that he was.
Okay.
And really, when you saw how he moved and stuff, I could definitely tell.
And dude, right off the bat, bro, the stare off, the stand down between those two, dude, it was classic. It was like
about the same size. Isaac Yankem maybe slightly bigger, a little more muscular. But
the only thing I wish, dude, was that he didn't Undertaker didn't have the mask on at the time, because that would have made it that much better.
I've been noted he has like a Phantom of the Opera mask. Supposedly, he broke.
I can't remember if it was his eye socket or his nose. It was one of the two. Anyhow, he's in great shape, I have noted too. In my opinion, Undertaker at this time is in great shape.
Yeah. I love Paul Bear. I've always thought he was great. He has the creepiest.
Dude, every time I can't. I love it.
Oh yeah. Undertaker got like a huge pop, which doesn't surprise me. I noticed they did a Hillary Clinton diss, and I did have a note about Jerry coaching Isaac Yankem. I believe they allude to the Undertaker, correct me if I'm wrong, getting his face crushed by
Yokozuna.
Yeah, hence the.
Yep. And I do believe that's correct.
Yeah. I don't know why the urn wasn't there and there was a chain. Obviously, later in the match, Jerry Lawler just decides he's going to get up and help Isaac.
Yeah, you know what else I noted too, Brian? The only thing I hate about this match is I felt like they kept cutting away from it. What do you think?
Well, they do.
Like we didn't get enough of those two guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They should have waited till the match was over and then cut away, I think. I did notice the King had a crazy looking mullet, which I've always, he was short haired when he ran off. I could see like
it was blowing. Yeah, blowing in the back. Did he rock that thing probably until just recent, honestly? You know what I got noted was a lot of this match took place on the outside. And man, that ref could have counted this match out at least 5-6 times. He was, and I noted too, Vince McMahon mentioned count out, and then I started paying more attention to it, and there was 3 different instances where the ref would go 1, 2, and then like Undertaker would look at him and he'd stop and he'd go 1, 2, like he did it 3 times, and then on the 3rd time, Undertaker rolled in and rolled out and restarted the count, and I was like, man, all right, they obviously are not going to go with that. So carry on. Sorry.
So we cut to Hendricks.
Still looking for Razor, right?
Still looking for Razor. You lose to, I have a note, Goldust versus Hitman match for next Monday.
Yep.
I believe is what they say.
For the title, correct? I think that's what it
not
was.
Sure, because the title's on the line at Royal Rumble, so I would assume if he has the title.
If I'm not mistaken, I think they said if he still had the title, it was on the line. Yeah.
The only other notes I have is really good athleticism for big men, but I mean, you already know that they're probably 2 of the best big men ever for this time period. Undertaker wins on a tombstone. I like the match. I think
right before that, though, Brian, did you know? I got noted here. Right before they went to that tombstone, they went back to PSAs for no reason. Like, didn't say nothing. It was like a botch, and like he's just walking in the back, and it's like they didn't tell each other. It was just odd that they did that, and then they went back, and then like you said, finished with a tombstone. Obviously, 2 big athletes. Very, very cool to see this. But I wanted to ask you, I heard the bell ring before they even started counting.
At the end?
Yeah. And then if you watch the ref, he's literally, Brian, like 1, bam.
Then the bell.
2, bam. No, like he's counting really slow. But what I think happened was the dude that rings the bell, I think he bumped the bell before the dude started counting, and that threw off the ref. But then the ref he's counted so slow, it was weird. Go back, check it out. I swear, the bell rings before he counts, and then the ref counts really super slow, and then the bell rings again. It's weird.
So there are 2 bell issues on 2 shows, one before the match starts and one ending it early.
Yep, absolutely. Last couple things I got noted on here before we talk about what they do at the end. Once again, I have the Sony promos are just hot. We know that. That's the main reason to be stopping on this channel. If you're flipping through, that's their eye catcher. Where versus, like we talked about Nitro, all their other stuff. They end this show, Brian, with finally what happens.
I have a note about the Sunny in the bathtub. Same thing. Lots of sexual innuendo. So we finally get this interview that we've been hyping nonstop the whole match. Goldust interview. Surprise. Ramon attacks him. I did like this attack though. Like,
brawl was brilliant. I thought. I mean, it was
like he was pissed, and it looked like a legit shoot.
Dude,
like
he was laying it in. He was laying it in. I think even when Goldust was on the ground, there was an instant where Goldust wrapped his arm around Razor, and I swear he was like grabbing him to tell him, like, dude, it's hurting. Like, maybe. I don't know. I could be saying that, but like they made this look great.
They made it look like there was legitimate heat between the 2. Yes. I do have a thing. I think it was Ramon picks up like a blue.
I don't know what that was. It was like, it looked like almost like a tank of some
sort. It looked rubber.
Yeah.
It was like rubber, like
but
bounced off of me.
But it sounded good though. It bounced, but it sounded like it hurt,
Sounded good. They go outside, fight in the snow. It was overhyped. I think they would have actually benefited if they wouldn't have even said Razor was coming. Just saying we're having another interview with Goldust, or maybe not even had the the cringy one with McMahon to say we're going to interview Gold.
Yeah.
Surprise, here's Razor. That
and even, you know what else I liked about it too, as they're dragging us out, Goldust comes out of that room with like his suitcase half zipped, like he's trying to get away. And like they carry it on, and it, like, dude, it looks like, you know, legitimately this guy's like, I gotta get the hell out of here. And then, Brian, here's what I think the whole reason why Razor was late. They go outside, and lo and behold, there's snow and ice.
Yeah.
Maybe he was just, you know, in bad traffic in a snowstorm. Who knows? But anyways, they carry this fight. They carry the fight. Yeah, go ahead.
It was just more watch till the end of the show because something's going to happen. I'm sure he was probably there the whole time.
Agreed. But they carry this fight on the outside. You know, it looks even rougher outside. They're running into the signs. They're throwing each other into the semis. And they go off the air like this. And man, to me, this goes back to, you know, you start the show out hot, that keeps you there. But how you end the show is very important as well. And this, in my opinion, I'm not a fan of the storyline. I've said that a billion times here today. But the way this ended, dude, I had to watch the next episode to see what happened next, right?
Yeah. I mean, they fight in the snow. There's one point Goldust even like legitimately slips on ice. You can tell he.
Yeah.
It ends when Goldust actually gets in the car and
rolls
away.
out. Yeah, and he throws the trash can.
Low blow.
Well, yeah, he throws the low blow on Razor, but Razor ends up throwing the trash can at the car as it's speeding off. Yeah. But yeah, man, I think they ended it well. This, like, why can't they have this kind of pull in or excitement or action throughout the whole show? I hate that they get you at the end. You know what I mean?
Yep. Agreed. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. I do have some final thoughts.
Yeah, let's get Brian's final thoughts, and then we'll get to the bacon pieces here in just a minute.
I thought the best match was Austin Hardy. I do think this was the first kind of real show that I've seen. It, you know, other than,
so out of the three, if you're just watching, we're week 3. So Brian's claiming week 3 right now. This is the best Raw we've seen. That's what you're saying.
I'd have to check the ratings, but I feel like I rated it the best. Yeah. And it wasn't, like you said, some of it might have been taped, but it wasn't, hey, check out this match on a pay-per-view we had a month ago. It at least was presented like a real show. Developed some of the storyline, didn't really have, you know, the heavy hitters. I guess you had the Undertaker, so you did have one of your heavy hitters out there.
No Bret Hart, no Shawn Michaels. Obviously, they're pushing Shawn Michaels this whole episode. We know what's going to happen. We're talking Rumble next, but
there were no title shots, so there wasn't really a match of significance.
Right.
I do have a note about how it's kind of strange that they're now starting to bring more, you know, sexual innuendo into the thing, especially with the Sunny stuff, more adult themes as far as like some of the storylines. So to me, I'm starting to see kind of the transition here of them going more towards a Nitro style, or what ends up becoming like the Attitude Era. I did like the Goldust Ramon fight. I mean, that was probably the best part about the show. Honestly, it was it looked real.
It actually had a little bit of comedy mixed in with realness, like you said. Yeah, because, you know, they're keeping us on our toes about the Doc Hendricks. You know, it does get old, but it's kind of comedy in a way. And then we get the ending that we get. Well, Brian, I agree with you. There are some misses. There are some hits. Like you said, absolutely. I do believe Matt Hardy and Steve Austin have the best match. Now, granted, I don't want to take too much away from Owen Hart and Marty Jannetty because I like the way they flowed. Obviously, we didn't get enough of Spiders. And I'm going to have to go on a limb and give this a piece and a half of bacon here from Eddie B.
I gave it 2 pieces. So it was slightly better than Nitro, I thought, this week. And basically for the reasons that I said, I still feel like it's a lot of jobber matches. But you got to see some future stars. I feel like they're starting to transition into more of a style that I prefer. And it had some decent wrestling in it. The Jannetty, Hart, obviously the Austin, Matt Hardy, even the Undertaker and Isaac Yankem for two big men. That was a pretty good match. So I would give it 2.
All right, I can totally agree with you. And with that, that's going to wrap up week 3 of the Monday Night Wars. Bryan, well, Raw seems to make a little bit of ground this week in our bacon pieces. They now wrap up with 7.5 pieces going into week 4, and Nitro now with 14 pieces of bacon. So they're closing that door. Stay tuned with us, guys. We'll be back next week with, well, it's going to be a little different this time, folks. That's right. We're going to cover Royal Rumble and the go-home Nitro before the Clash of Champions on week 4 of Eeez N Beez Brunch with, I'm your host, Eddie B, and that's the glue over there, BA, Bryan Ashton. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, peace.